All right, folks, the panel's back. We're joined by Grace Marie Turner and Kevin Jackson, and we're picking up on Kevin. Kevin, when you say you don't think anything should happen to Donald Sterling, you don't think he should be suspended or fined or anything?
No, they can fine him. They could do something along those lines. But to act as if what he did is, he's a mass murderer or a serial rapist, I think is ridiculous. He had a private conversation that I find in poor taste. But when we start regulating to this degree, we end up with what happened with the guy at Mozilla. He donates $1,000 to a pro-marriage thing, and next thing you know, he loses a company that he founded. That's ridiculous.
All right, Grace Marie, does it matter to you that this was taped illegally?
That's really a terrible analogy. What's going to happen here is that if the sponsors stop supporting this team, if the fans stop going, then the team's value is going to quickly diminish, and Sterling himself, is going to find that he's better off selling the team and taking what he can get out of this, and then letting some new person own this team that's not going to have this same kind of baggage.
That may be fine, Grace Marie, and that may very well be fine, and that's the market taking care of itself. But the idea that he should be forced to give up this team is ridiculous. If he chooses to sell it on his own, that's his business.
Well, yes, who knows whether the NBA has the authority to force him to sell the team, but the marketplace can certainly force him to sell it if he loses his sponsorship and he loses his fans.
That's right. The marketplace.
Kevin, let me ask you a question. Kevin, let me ask you a question, and you may agree with all of these things I'm going to say. You have Chris Paul, one of the stars of the Clippers, the team in question. I have a New York Post story from a year ago, May of last year, saying that he wanted to stay as a Clipper. He was a free agent at that point, and he did, but he wanted a black coach. Okay, according to many NBA sources, he's a black player. You have Jay-Z was a part owner of the New Jersey Nets. They forced him to sell his ownership part, not because of his ho and B lyrics in songs, but because he became a sports agent. Right. You also have Bill Maher, who owns a portion of a very small minority portion of the New York Mets, who's used the C word to describe Republican women and other things he said. So does there need to be consistency across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that they're being held to different standards. There have been many times that a player has said, I want a particular coach. And in the case of Chris Paul wanting a black coach, that's as racist of a comment. How about you want a good coach? You could argue with me, I want a good owner. I'd certainly tell you, yeah, I agree with that. But these guys are still happy to take his paycheck. Knowing that they're working for this so-called racist, they showed up to the game. None of them have vowed to quit. I haven't seen anybody say, you know what, he's a racist, I'm not playing, I don't care what the fans say or anything along those lines. They still want to show up and play. So, and like I said, this isn't something new. This didn't just suddenly come along with his views on blacks or anything else. And to be honest with you, a lot of the things were contextual, and I think there's a lot more to those comments and the fact that he was probably more of a setup than it was some of his espousing just his own views.
Well,
all right, Grace Marie, final word. Final word, Grace Marie, go ahead.
I think, to recognize that the issue here is that we need a civil society where all of that kind of behavior is not allowed, not condoned, certainly not rewarded in our society, in our economy, to treat each other decently with dignity, apart from any racial associations, to make sure that we are treating each other properly, speaking of each other well. This is absolutely outrageous, and none of it should be condoned.
All right, guys, ladies, we'll reconvene a little bit later. I thank you both for joining us. Very interesting, very spirited discussion. Grace Marie Turner and Kevin Jackson. Thank you both. Yeah, folks, it really is. It really is. I don't know what to say. I mean, first of all, there's no defense for what he said, for what the owner of the Clippers said. I want to make that perfectly clear. And I want Media Matters and everybody else to take note that that's the pretext that I'm working under here. Okay, that's the bottom line. Everything else is, considering issues, talking about other extenuating circumstances, with other players, other owners, etc. So what I would like to see consistency. I don't understand how according to the New York Post, Carmelo Anthony is allowed to wear a medallion even in public. I mean, even off the court. It is off the court that proclaims or represents a group that proclaims that the whites are the devil. I don't get that. Now, if he knows that, it should be stopped. Jay-Z, how is he allowed to be an owner with those lyrics denigrating women? All right, folks, we'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show. But first, today's America's Moment takes a look back at a Where You Were When day in history. It wasn't too long ago, the day we finally got Osama bin Laden.
In the early morning hours of May 2nd, 2011, the Central Intelligence Agency launched Operation Neptune Spear and set into motion a mission to bring one of the world's most notorious terrorists to justice. All indications were that Osama bin Laden was asleep as the U.S. Naval Special Warfare Development Group, known as SEAL Team 6, approached his highly secured 3-story Pakistani-based compound. From entry to exit took approximately 45 minutes, with the bulk of time being used to gather up a plethora of al-Qaeda intelligence materials. When located in his living quarters on the 3rd floor of his compound, the head of the Islamist group al-Qaeda was found using his young wife as a shield. The Obama administration reported the 54-year-old terrorist was given a traditional Islamic burial at sea. 9 years, 7 months, and 21 days following his infamous attack on New York's Twin Towers, killing thousands of innocent civilians, its mastermind, Osama bin Laden, was dead. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax.